drive, way back, it might be, it could be, it is. Holy cow, welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fans, welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Thank you so much to our awesome sponsors, Wrigleyville Sports, the best sports store in Wrigleyville, and Yaggy Road Roasting Company, based in Valparaiso, Indiana, serving cups of coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in.
Hello, welcome to Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Brickheads! Welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, a Cubs podcast for Cub fans by Cub fans. I am your hostess, the mostest, Jeff Candid Cubs Rogowskis, and with me today is Marquee's greatest pre- and post-man, inventor of the win pin tweet, Mr. Cole Wright. Cole, thanks for hopping on today.
Hey, anytime, Jeff. How you feeling, man?
I guess I'm feeling pretty good. It's May. The Cubs are still in first place, 3-game lead, and over 500, survived April. There's not many things to be upset about. When the Cubs are rolling, like, it makes heading into summer feel really, really good.
Yeah, all things are right with the world. You would have liked to see them take 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 3 from San Francisco because they were in each and every single game. I mean, that extra innings, I mean, boy, was that a kick in the zipper, man. I mean, you were right there. And you know, I love Pete's aggressiveness. I would have liked to see him try to lay down a bunt. I also would have liked it. And this is no knock on Pete because Pete he's that guy for me right now, man. He's the dude. Like you watch games just to see what he's going to do next. But in that at bat, I would have loved to see him take that first pitch against a reliever who just walked a guy with a man for man on second. So it's just little things like that. I feel like that's going to come along. You know, the older he gets, you know, the more mature he gets as a player. And when he starts to, you know, get a little more recognition of that strike zone, and that's when he's going to become just that much more dangerous. But I feel like in situations like that, every once in a while, you know, being aggressive is good, but sometimes you need to let that reliever, you know, dig his own grave.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, just, you know, like trying to think of what Craig Counsell's thinking in that situation, what the signs are, because that was my first thought when he came up there. I'm like, tough lefty. Guy's got wheels. He's chaos, like, in a bottle. Like, why not lay down a bunt, see if we can get that run across? If they're going to try to get the guy at home, like, Pete's going to be able to run rampant. If they try to throw out Pete, might be a bad throw. That first game of the series, too, the Giants' defense, as good as it's been all year, was 4 errors, and by guys that don't make errors, too, on Matt Chapman. And, yeah, I'm just curious, like, if you're a young player, and, like, we can talk about this real quick before getting the main topic. If you're a young player as a manager there, do you tell him to bunt, and does that reduce his confidence because the guy's been on fire, or is that something that situationally they gave him the option? Just curious what your perspective there, because I really wanted to see him lay one down.
I mean, I don't think for a player like Pete that deters him in any shape, form, or fashion. I mean, that's part of his game. Like, in addition to being able to hit the ball over the fence and hit scissors in the gap, that's another part of his game that they have to and must respect, his ability to lay down that bunt and be safe. Like, when I used to work for the Red Sox, you know, once upon a time, and I always said that Jacoby Ellsbury, with his power and his ability and his speed, I'm like, he should at least show bunt for a hit once a game. That's going to, at the end of a season, if he lays down, say if he lays down 60 bunts for a hit and gets 20, that's 20 extra hits. I mean, I don't know anyone who couldn't use 20 extra hits on their average, you know? So, I mean, I feel like for a guy like me,
that's Hall of Fame numbers.
I mean, if he could just weaponize that bunt and make that, you know, an ironclad part of his game, I think that'll take it to the next level. In addition to how dangerous he's already been, if they don't know and they can't play bunt defense on you because you could jam it right down their throat at any given time, that's when I feel that corner will be turned in. Like, he's already superstar status. I mean, he's right there. He's on the doorstep of it. But I feel like just that little incorporation in his game. But I mean, nobody likes bunts, and no one's trying to hear me talk about bunts. So I just love to win, and I feel like I love to win more than I hate to bunt, and that's something I try to hang my hat on.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there, and especially what happened after. It's hard not to revisionist history and look at that moment. And Dansby smoked that ball too in the next at bat.
Man, it was right there.
The one guy that's going to make that play 99 out of 100 times. And that, just baseball is a cruel mistress at times. And man, it feels like we left some on the table there. But when they move on, this team turns the page better than anyone, any team I've seen. At least they've assembled in the last few years. So hopefully they get hot here in New York. But yeah, just before, it's a little housekeeping on the ads. Before we get rolling, make sure that you subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast app. It helps us find more Brickheads for the show. So if you watch on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, which is the Bleacher Bunch Network, home of Cubs PS Plus with Mike Waller, Sorrento with Danny Rocket, Cup of Cubby Blue with Sarah Sanchez, The Bleacher Bunch Show with all of us, and Baseball Rabbit Hole with Michael Cotton. And if you want more of that content exclusively, make sure you join the Patreon for the exclusive Cubs Pod, which is a daily Cubs recap show. So, Cole, today we talked a little bit off air. I brought you on to we did this last year with Brett Taylor over at Bleacher Nation, the pre-quarter of the season grades. So, obviously, baseball is a marathon, not a sprint. But the Cubs did have a really, really interesting and challenging April. And I always find it once we get to about 25%, not to be a nerd, but we're at like 23%, 38 games. We are we get an idea of what the identity of this team could be. And it's a good time to kind of evaluate where they are, what they might need to do, and what they're doing well. So today we're going to kind of talk about the team and the offensive side, the defensive side, and then starting pitching and relief pitching, and kind of assign some grades. And we'll start with the bats. So you've obviously, as part of your job, you see this game, you see their games every day. You follow this team. What are the positives you've seen from this offense here in 2025?
One of the things that really just jumps off the page immediately is their ability to never really have clean innings. I mean, at least when you look at it defensively, they're rarely going 1, 2, 3. I mean, whether it's Happer right off the top with the 7-pitch at bat, then you have Kyle Tucker, Seiya, who's been scuffling just a little bit, but when he's at his best is when he's aggressive, and when he's aggressive, that's when he's a real problem. Michael Bush. I feel like it's their ability just to run batters up there, and they can take walks. Carson Kelly has more walks than strikeouts and more home runs than strikeouts. I mean, it's discipline right now is what this team has been able to do. They've been able to have a lot of discipline at bats. They go up there, they have good pitch recognition. Their ability to manipulate that strike zone, I feel like it's been borderline stellar. In the back half, whether it's been when Matt Shaw was up or not, it doesn't really matter. John Birdie's been able to fill in nicely. It's Nico, it's PCA, it's Dansby, it's Miguel Amaya, and all those guys who can pretty much be, I don't know, not necessarily powerful towards the back end, but just a tough out towards the backside. I mean, in years past, we saw when you got to 6, 7, 8, 9, it was like, oh boy, when can we get back to 1, 2, 3, 4? And it always seemed like there was a whole bunch of just empty outs that were coming down the pipe. And this year, you don't really feel that. I mean, I feel like you feel like you're in every at bat 1 through 9, and that's a problem. I think that opposing pitchers feel that exact same way. Whether it's Miguel Amaya batting in the 9 hole or John Birdie, these cats aren't going to roll over and just give you a week at AB, man. So I feel like that's one of the calling cards for this Cubs team this year. They're potent throughout 1 through 9, and even the guys coming off the bench. I mean, Justin Turner's still looking for that first extra base hit, but he's batting like 600 with runners in scoring position. So, I mean, is it the ideal experiment, and has it fit into the mold that you shaped at the beginning of the season? Not necessarily, but he still has shown some production. That's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, I think, I'm on the same page. There's a lot of this offense that I feel like profiles very similar to that 2016 team. And I'm not trying to get ahead of myself in, just obviously the comparison and what that team did. And they ran the gauntlet, pretty much, led the division most of the year, were picked by everyone to win the World Series, ended up winning the World Series, one of the best defensive team in the history of baseball by metrics. And it's not close. They were an incredible team. But that being said, the offense reminds me of that. They were just devils in the box. Like, they were hard to get out. They didn't strike out a lot. They were able to generate offense in a bunch of different ways. And yeah, it seems like the Cubs took a conscious effort of having different profile of hitters in this lineup. And like, really the whole thing is stabilized by Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is as MLB Network likes to say all the time, the aircraft carrier in this lineup. Yep. And like, that is an aircraft carrier that has risen the tide of this entire group. And it's been super fun to watch, and just these guys battle day in and day out. It's fun baseball. And yeah, there's offensively, by the statistics too, they are one of the top offenses in baseball, number 4 right now, behind heavy hitters like the Yankees and the Dodgers. I think, personally, if you told me that the Cubs had probably like the 3rd worst production out of third base, but were a top 4 offensive team, yeah, I would think that would be insane. So like, there's potentially up to go if they can just get average production, which they seem to have found, like, at least for now, in John Birdie, from third base. Like, this offense could still find another level.
Yeah, and you talk about the production at third base. Matt Shaw ideally is what you want to shape, the future at the hot corner. However, there's a lot of rumblings right now coming out of Boston, man. Rafael Devers, they want him to play first base. He says he's not going to play first base. He's a DH. He didn't want a DH to begin with. And I feel like it's just a weird scenario how a guy who was a staple in your franchise, you go and you trade for, you acquire a guy like Alex Bregman, rather, and you bring him in to play the position that essentially the best player on your team plays. And people are like, oh, I can't believe him. Like, what? It doesn't make sense. Like, you think that he would be more of a team player, but when you're the best player on that team and you were responsible for a championship coming through town, and then they just kind of cast you off. If you're a player like Rafael Devers, you would kind of, feel a little, I don't know, you feel some kind of way, I would imagine. And that's probably one of the reasons why he doesn't want to play first base. And I know that the translation from first base or third base to first base is sometimes a seamless one. But I feel like he did nothing to warrant that position change. Like, if you're bringing Alex Bregman in, I thought maybe you should have had him go play second base and then do a little mixing and matching, however you wanted to do it. But I don't necessarily know if that means that Rafael Devers is going to be on the market. But I know there are some common threads and close ties between, the Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs. Obviously, Craig Breslow was with the Cubs organization. He's over there in Boston right now. And there is a hefty price tag on Rafael Devers. However, you look at the iron. Is the iron hot right now? It seems to be, and that's when you more times not want to strike. So, if Rafael Devers, if that's a real possibility, and I don't know what you'd have to give up for Devers, and I don't know how much of the bulk of the salary that the Boston Red Sox will be willing to take on if that were an actual deal. But, there are pieces of the puzzle right now. And sometimes, the prospects have to be used as currency. Just how much are you willing to spend? Like, is a guy like Moises Ballesteros, is he trade worthy? Because you see what's coming down the pipe. Will Carson Kelly be this good next season or the season after? Miguel Amaya, he's starting to round into that full-time kind of guy. But the only problem is the thing that's hindering his progression is Carson Kelly and his fantastic season. And that's not a bad thing. But ultimately losing out is Moises Ballesteros, because if Carson Kelly was just the Carson Kelly of 2-3 seasons ago, Big Mo probably would be up here right now. And it'd be Miguel Amaya and Moises Ballesteros with Carson Kelly getting the Yan Gomes treatment as we saw last year, because, Father Time saw how undefeated he is, because Yan Gomes 2 years ago, all he was doing was hitting rockets. And then Father Time came in and was on his block and told him, all right, Yan, it's time to go. But I don't know. It's an interesting case, and it's a good situation to be in with a bunch of young talent. Obviously, Cade Horton getting the call. That's a good thing. We'll see if he slots in on Saturday. That's when Shota was supposed to start, and Cade Horton and his starting schedule was right in line with Shota. So there's so much that's unknown, but it is good, as you alluded to be able to get through that first month and change, not necessarily unscathed, but with a 3-game lead. Because at the beginning of the season, when everyone saw the schedule come out, they're like, oh boy, this could be tough. You look at the road, San Diego twice, Los Angeles twice, Diamondbacks twice. You have to play in Sacramento. Then you have, not the easiest schedule coming to the house. San Francisco at home, a team that is, top 3, top 5 winning percentage wise, but they really don't do a whole bunch of things well, except for hit with runners in scoring position. And we saw that, that really reared its ugly head in extras the other day. But, to be able to not get 2 or 3 from them, I mean, far from ideal. And, obviously now you're going to New York and everyone talks about how great the Mets are. The Mets are awesome. But all the Mets have really done is beat up on lesser than competition. I mean, you go back 2 weeks ago, they played 20 games versus sub 500 teams, and the Cubs had played 0. So, make of that what you will. But I think the Cubs are going to be all right against the greatest hitter in the history of baseball, Juan Soto, as everyone's proclaiming, just because the dude walks a lot. I mean, let's see, not even the greatest hitter in the league. What are we talking about?
Yeah, he's not having an Aaron Judge season, but not many human beings will ever have a season like that guy started out with. But I do want to circle back really quickly to the Rafael Devers idea, because this is something that I've actually started thinking about as well, reading about the drama. And this morning, I think, was where he was saying he wouldn't play first base. And yeah, I think, there comes a point, especially the Red Sox are playing pretty good ball. Like, you have to potentially decide, well, is this a guy that is going to poison the clubhouse? What's his contributions? But from the Cubs perspective, like, even if you're going to, like, if you can lessen the prospect load and take on a lot of that contract, they do have a lot of room before that first level of the CBT. And his contract is actually $13 million per year cheaper than Alex Bregman would have been in the free agent market. He's still only 28 years old and already has 203 home runs in the majors. Like, I would give up a Ballesteros for a Devers, because Ballesteros has 0 major league home runs. That's always the concept that I try to instill in people, is that as much as I drool over prospects and, Cade Horton Day, which will be celebrated tomorrow here in Chicago, like, these guys aren't anything until they are something. And it's, you need to have these types of guys. But yeah, if a guy like Rafael Devers is available and you think about pairing him in this lineup, have Seiya, Tucker, Devers in the middle.
How much better does the lineup get? I mean, if you have Devers in this lineup, I mean, wrecking crew.
Yeah,
they're causing damage all the way.
That lineup potentially challenges like the Dodgers for, on paper, being one of the better lineups in baseball. Like, that is how good a Rafael Devers is. And yeah, maybe his numbers actually aren't even that bad right now, but like, maybe they, spin up if he's playing third base, if he's back to doing what he wants to do. And he's not an incredible defensive third baseman, but like, the floor is so low for what the Cubs need defensively at third base. And they have, 2 wizards in the middle of the infield that can make up for some of his, his range. Like, if he's providing, 4 WAR, like, offensively, and just holding the fort over there, like, sign me up. Like, I would do that 10 times out of 9. So let's give it
you could bring a guy like that to the Cubs. I mean, I just feel like what he would bring, just a reinvigoration of him being back in his original position. Some guys, that's just what they are. They're not jack of all trades. They can't play multiple positions. And when you look and say, oh yeah, that should be an easy transition, third base to first base, like, that's normally what you see. You see, average to below average third baseman become really, really good first baseman. It's like no knock on Michael Busch and his defensive prowess at third base or lack thereof, but he's a really good first baseman. And I don't feel like a lot of people were saying like Michael Busch is a really good, super competent third baseman. So, maybe Rafael Devers would be a well above average first baseman, and he just wants to be that average third baseman that rakes. But I mean, that's where his comfort level is at. So I don't fault him. Maybe if it results in a trade and the Cubs are the beneficiaries of that, I would be a big fan of him and his temper tantrum, so to speak, in Boston. But either way, I still think it was kind of a sneaky pull the rug out from underneath the dude's feet. And maybe it's because it's Alex Cora as the manager. And I'm just not an Alex Cora fan because of everything that happened in Houston with him and AJ Hinch. Like, oh yeah, guys, you served your time, 1 year away from baseball. Yeah, you're back managing teams. No, man, like, they're cheaters. Like, we've come to that conclusion. Like, guys have gotten kicked out and been banished from the game for, which seems to be less. I mean, Pete Rose sat around and waited forever, and I don't want to necessarily get into a Pete Rose and what's the baseball police, but I feel like cheating is worse than betting, even though betting is like, that's one of the things that they say, do not bet on the game. But I feel like it just goes without saying there doesn't need to be a sign in every clubhouse that says don't cheat. Like, it says don't gamble, but I don't know. It's just the AJ Hinch and Alex Cora thing, and the Alex Cora being like, the spearhead of that. Obviously there's front office dwellers in Boston, but Alex Cora could have gone to bat for his third baseman that he's been with and said, no, this is our guy at third base. When we bring someone else in, they have to adapt. That's just my thought on it.
Yeah, the Pete Rose thing too. It's hard for the league to be in bed with every sports book on the planet, and then talk about how bad Pete Rose is. But that's a conversation for another day.
Different thought process there. Yeah,
actually. But if you had to give a grade for the offense up to this point, what would you give it?
I'll give it maybe I'm a tough grader. I don't want to be a tough grader, but I don't want to say, I give it an A, even though they're top 5 pretty much in every single metric. Maybe I give them an A- B+, if that's to be fair, because I think that they could be better. I agree. And I think that when Seiya is attacking and when he doesn't kind of just sit around and wait for that pitch, because he gets we talked about it. Everyone's talked about it. You see it. You watch games. He doesn't get the best calls. He's always getting kind of ganked on the edge, and then that changes his approach. If you're 0-1 instead of 1-0, and then you swing, and then you're down 0-2, and then maybe you take one that's that was designed to get swing and miss. That's way out of the zone, and then they freeze them with one in the zone. It's like, you got to be on the attack, man. You have to be aggressive, and I feel like when he's aggressive, that's when he's at his best. It's on a way smaller level, but my daughter's a softball player, and I always tell her the best way to avoid striking out is to avoid getting to a 2-strike count.
Yeah,
it sounds simple, but I mean, you got to get up there and you got to be ready to rake with a 0-0 count, and you have to have a certain approach and a certain attack. You have to be able to swing with no strikes. Your swing with no strikes should look vastly different than your swing with 2 strikes. It's like you should be. I'm playing pepper mentality with 2 strikes. I feel like those hammers that get thrown by him, and anyone for that matter, league wide. I mean, if you have 2 strikes and you see something loopy, I know it's easier said than done to hit. But even if you just flail at it and try to put something, just foul it off and live for another pitch. Like, that's what you want to see. You want to see more of that battling mentality. And I feel like when Seiya brings that to the table, he lengthens the lineup almost just as much as Kyle Tucker. I mean, if you look at Seiya in his last 162 games, I mean, the dude's like 30 and 100. So he's a dangerous hitter. I just feel like his potency isn't really put on full display unless he's as aggressive as he needs to be. But when he is aggressive, he's a problem, man. Nobody wants to really throw to that briar patch. I mean, whether it's Happer, like I said, taking 7-8 pitches off the top, and then Kyle Tucker, who does the things that are expected of him in the situations where it's expected. He comes up with runners on, like he's man on third, got to drive it in. Boom, there's a base hit. We saw him in a game with hit a 2-run home run to get him within either a pair or one in the Miguel Amaya game. I think it was within 1 run. So just the things that he's able to do and how he stretches this offense, he helps other guys help stretch the offense as well. So when Seiya's going, when Kyle Tucker's going, when Carson Kelly is doing what he needs to do, Miguel Amaya, like he just looks like a different dude with the bat, with the glove, just all the way around. So, I mean, an A-B+ is where I have to give it, only because there's room for growth, man.
Yeah, I think I was going to sit on the B+ side, and only on the same thing because I think there are spots in this lineup. Third base sticks out, and then I think Seiya Suzuki is a challenging player is not the correct word, but like at the back of the baseball card each season, like he's been consistent enough that you can write it down. Like he's going to be in the 280s. It's like 350, 360 on base, 480 slugging. Like that's what he is. But there are stretches in there where he's otherworldly, like where he's locked in and he's battling at the plate. And, I think he seems to get in his head. Like, and there's just like a stretch where like, it seems like the Cubs have figured out like that he needs like a moment or like he needs a day like to, like reset or whatever it is. And I've wondered too, like when they had him play right field the other day, I'm like, well, I was like, yeah, I know he's new to the DH. Like, and maybe he's taking his at-bats and like sitting there and stewing in them in too long, where like in the outfield like that, you don't really have time. You got to pay attention to the next thing. So I figured there'd be an adjustment. And yeah, when he's cold, he's really cold and it's not a fun at-bat to watch. But when he's hot, like the guy is one of the best hitters in the game. Like he really just hits the bejesus out of the ball. And yeah, I'd like to see him stabilize and, find maybe a B hack in some of those runners in scoring position. Cause I feel like there is a lot of opportunities in which like he looks at strike three when there are men on, and because he's waiting for some sort of pitch, and then there's like an opposite aggression that comes post hoc that is almost too aggressive. So like he seems to like battle with himself, but like the sum of the parts is a great player, and yeah, it's interesting. Like I almost made this an A just because of what Kyle Tucker is. Like he has been, even when he is cold, like his at bats look great. Like he's still hitting the crap out of the ball and maybe just not getting lift, and like he's still got great exit velocity. He's a fun guy to watch play the game. Like he comes to the plate with a plan, and like you can see that effect. Like it's not Dexter Fowler, but it is similar to like what Dexter Fowler did. Like he really had some great at bats in the top of that lineup, and like really let the rest of that lineup kind of galvanize to that approach. And when Dexter was in a good spot, the offense was in a good spot. And like, it feels like a lot of these guys are taking some hints from Kyle Tucker and his approach at the plate, and has really risen the group to honestly above my expectations. I thought Kyle Tucker would be good, but I thought they were, you know, a short a bat, but the bottom of this lineup has really just been amazing in what they've been able to do.
Yeah, their speed, their ability to get on and just push the issue. I mean, when they're on, they're doing damage on the base paths, and you know, from Nico to PCA to Dansby, that's a quick 6, 7, 8. I mean, they can get around those base paths, and I feel like the PCA effect is something that we see all the time, man. It's when Pete gets on, everyone is rushed. Everyone's sped up a tick. Everyone knows that I got to make a play on this dude because he's that guy. Like I saw because the naming of the new pope, they said, since he's from Chicago, they said, once they announced the new pope that the white smoke comes out, and they said like that should be Pete's nickname, White Smoke. But it's funny. My dad said last year that. He's like Pete Armstrong, man. He's like White Lightning. So I don't know if you ever heard me call Pete Moonshine, but I've called Pete Moonshine from time to time, man. So he's that kind of guy, man. And I just feel like, that back half of the lineup, the way that they're able to push the issue, and Nico, I mean his bat to ball is better than Pete's right now, but I just feel like Pete has more electricity with the bat. But when you know that those guys are going to get on and they're going to leg everything out, and they're going to potentially steal the next bag, and stealing stops and hit and runs, I feel like when all that is put on, everyone is sped up just that extra bit. And I mean, defense, we don't see it like we used to. Maybe I'm just an old dude in the barbershop, but when I was a kid growing up, like we didn't see so many balls from the left side of the infield that were bounced across. So I feel like guys, they know what they have to do, and their internal clock is going off a lot quicker when Nico and Pete and Dansby are out there doing damage. So I just feel like the back half has been the unsung hero for this lineup. We know how much damage the front of the lineup has done, but it's the back that's really kept him in games, man.
Yeah, and like PCA emerging as a star, like has been such a big. I think we all thought the pieces were there. The back half of last year, he looked like he had started to figure some things out, and yeah, I think I've been a little surprised in how much the power has been a part of the game. I thought we'd see a lot more of the speed, like raising that batting average. But yeah, it's been nice to see him kind of be a complete hitter. And yeah, it's just he's fun to watch. And I think it's kind of at the advent of people need to kind of tune in. He's like must watch TV, and this is how stories like that I'm going to tell like my grandchildren of like I saw that guy, and like the way he plays the outfield is just incredible. And some of the throws
crazy?
He's made,
like
it's been insane.
I don't mean to jump you on this, but it's almost like when I watch Pete now, he brings the same kind of electricity to the ballpark as in his prime, and we're seeing a renaissance season from him right now. But he reminds me of watching Javi Baez play. Like the same electricity you watched when Javi Baez is on the field, you always wanted to see what was coming next. Not to take anything away from Anthony Rizzo or Chris Bryant or Kyle Schwarber or any of the other guys that were part of that World Series core. But for me, Javi Baez was the guy that you never wanted to take your eyes off of. You never knew what was coming next. Could he make that electric play at shortstop? Yes. Could he take you 15 rows deep? Absolutely. I mean, just all the little things that he would do, just watching him play. I feel like Pete Armstrong is the 2025 version of Javi Baez. And and good for Javi, man, for having that regeneration season in Detroit, man. I love to watch it.
Yeah, as I say,
Yeah,
I
it
love
kind
it.
of squashed in some of the trade for Javi Baez to play third base rumors, but I don't know. I like to see him because last year when the Tigers came to town, Javi came over and came on set with Cliff and Dexter and I, and it was as genuine as can be, man. He came over and gave us a hug, and it was really cool. So it's really neat to see him go out there and be able to have the season that he's having this season.
Yeah, he's always been like one of my favorites of that group for all the reasons you said, and that's what makes this like Pete Crow Armstrong and what makes watching baseball fun is players like that. And like it's one of the things about like, you know, the diminished shift in some of the rules is like the return of athleticism on defense. And like Javi, even in that world, like was making plays that like without shifts and stuff that were just, you'd have like, it was hard to believe they were happening. And now he's like the third or fourth best outfielder in baseball.
Man.
Yeah. It's just like, and it doesn't surprise me at all. Like the guy was just, his instincts were just unreal, and he's reduced his strikeouts, and he's like, you know, he's hitting 300 right now. Like, man, I hope it continues.
I mean, I hope he does.
When
man.
Javi's good,
yeah.
When Javi's good, baseball is good. Like that's always been a rule of life. But all right, let's transition to pitching, and we'll start specifically with starting pitching because I feel like the starters in the bullpen are a little different. You know, I think this one's a tougher one to grade because so much has changed in the last few weeks, especially in the last month, of what the rotation even looks like. Like a lot of the grade could be put on Imanaga, but you know, at this moment, like it seems like the news is pretty solid, as good as it can be for a hamstring strain. But he's not going to be part of the rotation for a bit. Justin Steele is obviously out for the year, so it's not necessarily a mash, but it's not the one that every Cub fan was dreaming about. You know, I think in the offseason, I thought like they needed another guy to lengthen the rotation, maybe someone towards the front. That opportunity didn't present itself for the team this year, but now you're missing Imanaga and Steele for a little bit of stretch. The good news is the schedule's lightening up a little bit, like competition wise. There's still major league teams, like, so I'm not like you still have to win those games, but what do you think about the starting pitching, and how do you feel about it going forward, missing, you know, the two big arms on the staff?
Well, I feel good about what Matt Boyd and Colin Ray have been able to bring to the table, man. I mean, you know, Colin Ray, the last time out, it wasn't ideal, but for what he's been able to do, I mean, you have to appreciate that. I mean, he lives at 94 to 96, a little sneaky velocity. Just being able to keep the Cubs in every ball game because they do have that weapon of the bats. You know, they can jump up and they can score, you know, 9 runs, 10 runs. They've got more 9-run, 10-run ball games than anybody in Major League Baseball right now. At last look, I don't know if anything has changed over the last 2 days. However, I feel like if those guys can keep you in ball games, then you're fine. You know, Jamison Tyone he's Jamison Tyone. He goes out there, he's gonna, you know, maybe they'll score 3 runs off him, but he's gonna chew up 5-6 innings. You know, Matt Boyd, same thing, and Ben Brown. If we can get him to pitch at home like he does on the road and get the bats to be in line and on the same schedule as him. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, in his road starts, the Cubs have outscored the opponents 44-3. If it's not mistaken, our guy Chris Kamka, he's our booth researcher, in addition to our guy Chris Antonacci over at Marquee. So so if Ben Brown can just put himself on the mound at Wrigley and act like he's somewhere else, not at Wrigley.
Yeah.
And then the bats can follow suit for him. You know, I think that'll be, you know, something good. But the 2 injuries, they really hurt. But that's what we talk about, all the farm system. And will Cade Horton, will he come up and will he be just a next man up, another link in the chain mentality? Hopefully so. You know, I hope that I'm 100% incorrect, because I've always said, like, you never see converted position players turn into starting pitchers. They're always relievers. They're always closers. You know, you never really see a guy's like, oh, okay, I'm going to play third base, and then it doesn't work out. Now I'm going to be a starting pitcher. I feel like starting pitchers and catchers, and sometimes third basemen for that matter, are born. You know, it's like not many guys are like, like it's just halfway through their career, like, I think I want to be a catcher today. Like, what? I mean, unless an organization tells you have to change to be a catcher, not many guys are just like, hey, who wants to, you know, take 103-mile-an-hour foul balls off the shoulder. And I just don't think a lot of guys are about that life. So that's, my original assessment of Cade Horton being like, I think he's going to be a really good reliever or closer. But right now, everything he's shown is that he is a starter. And maybe he never really was a third baseman. Maybe Oklahoma University was like, this guy can play third base, but he's really a starting pitcher in a third baseman's clothing. So let's hope that is the scenario. Let's hope that Cade Horton goes out there and shoves like he has, over his last few outings down on the farm. I mean, the last two, 6 innings, 1 earned. He's been able to get a lot of swing and miss. The minors, though, a lot different than the majors. So, being able to navigate those the third time through, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be on a pitch count, if that is the scenario we see. I mean, maybe 70 pitches, I would think, but he's somewhat stretched out. Cliff told me, he's like, why should he be on a pitch count? Like, let him go. I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me, because I just feel like a lot of guys, just in general, around all Major League Baseball, are somewhat coddled. You don't see it as much now as we used to, where guys like, all right, here's the ball, here's your chance, let's go. So hopefully he's able to seize that opportunity and go out there and just be that next man up mentality. And that would be ideal for the Cubs and Craig Counsell and for Jed and for Carter. I just think that, if he's able to fit right in and slot right in, that makes this team that much more dangerous when Shota does come back. And even, you don't want to look towards next season, but when Justin Steele comes back, if Cade Horton is a fixture in your rotation, then that's problems for everybody. If it's Matt Boyd or if it's Colin Ray, I think Matt Boyd will be in that rotation for a while. Whether Colin Ray, whether he slides with other arms coming in and having different assignments, that's still to be determined. But Cade Horton, the sky's the limit. And I'll give the pitching staff right now, I'll give the starting pitching a solid B. They go out there, they try to limit the runs, and even looking at the bullpen, I mean, there's times where it blows up and it doesn't look great, but there's times where they're really, really good. And they come in, and I feel like you do see 4 relievers in one game, like, oh, scoreless outing from the bullpen again. Scoreless outing from the bullpen. Once again, another day with the scoreless bullpen. So you really can't knock them. So I'll give a B right now to the starting rotation. And I think you want to set me up on the bullpen, though. I didn't mean to put the cart before the horse.
No, it's all right. Yeah, I think, for me, a revelation for the staff has been Jameson Taillon. I think he is, whatever he's done with that changeup, I've been looking at that. I think it's the spike change. His off speed is grading way better than it has in the last few years. And he's been able to limit hard contact significantly more than he has in the last 3 years. I think maybe because of that pitch. And it seems like I abandoned the cutter is not the correct word, but he's using it significantly less. And it's rated well in the past, but he's just using his 4-seam fastball to get strikes, and he's not giving up a lot of hits. He's not walking anyone. He's got extremely low walk rate. That's one thing that I'll give this rotation. They're not walking guys. That's been a problem for the bullpen, but the rotation is
you can't
third lowest walk rate.
First batter walking dudes, man, in relief. No. That's oh my God, what are we doing? When you sit, I
honestly would rather give up a home run on a fastball down the middle than give that first, just because make them hit.
Not a home run, but maybe a scorched double. A scorched double. You take a scorched double over a walk or a loud base hit. Not necessarily a home run, but I hear what you're saying, though, because a lot of times those leadoff walks, they come back and score, man. That's the problem. So it might as well be that home run, and then just wipe it clean and get back to work.
It changes everything. It changes how you're going to pitch. Now, depending on who that runner is, they're in your head. It just get that first batter out. That's been such a problem. Yep. But yeah, Jameson Taillon has had a nice resurgence. I hope he continues. He's been so good, and I'm wondering if just working more with Zombro, and I was listening to when you're talking about Cade Horton, I was listening to the Foul Territory Cubs podcast with Sahadov and Patrick Mooney, and they were talking about the Cubs' organizational philosophy is shifting about how they manage pitching. We're seeing Jackson Wiggins, and we're seeing Cade Horton go 6-7 innings. They're not monitoring pitch counts as much as what they just want to see. Apparently they're monitoring how these guys respond in the next outing, how their workouts are, to see how their body's responding to the workload more than they are concerned about the workload, which is really, really interesting, and hoping that we see a little bit of maybe not a pitch count leash, but you know, maybe looking at the numbers, like, is Cade Horton, does he get through the lineup twice? And maybe you just don't want him to go through the third time, depending on who's up, or like if he's rolling and like, you know, you let him stay out there. Really interested to see how they manage him at the major league level. And I wouldn't trust anyone else besides Craig Counsell, who has seemed to have done this so successfully with so many pitchers who have turned into front end starters out of Milwaukee.
Yeah, you know, the one thing I have a firm belief in is guys can navigate the waters of a lineup 3 times through. You have to just pay attention to what you throw them the first 2 times through. Like, yeah. I feel like a lot of numbers and a lot of stats, they suggest that guys should just unload the arsenal to try to get as much swing and miss as possible early on. But if more guys threw strikes, and this is league wide, this isn't just with the Cubs, because I feel like the Cubs do a really good job of doing this. But when you have guys that throw strikes, it can pitch to all quadrants of home plate. That makes it that much easier, you know, to get outs. And like I said, that sounds like a simple philosophy, but like take it for instance, like when a reliever comes in. When a reliever comes in, it's a 1-run game. How many times do you see relievers just really throwing strikes off the rip that aren't swing and miss? These guys don't throw a whole bunch of strikes. So I feel like the rule needs to be you make them throw you a strike first before you start to operate. Because if these relievers show you that they can't throw you a strike, then you're going to have bases loaded but full of walks. And it's like I feel like the swing and miss thing is it's so in vogue right now in baseball. Like that's all they want relievers to do. Like if you can get guys to swing and miss, well, if you can have a more patient plate approach and realize that these relievers don't throw strikes, then guess what? And then they have to come to you, because some of the relievers, there's numbers that tell them, okay, well, don't throw your fastball, even though you throw 100 miles an hour, because you give up too much slug on your fastball. Well, where's that slug given up? Right across the heart of home plate or on the black? Because I would guarantee that slug is not given up when you're hitting corners like that. But when you leave 100-mile-an-hour fastball right over home plate, yes, major league hitters are going to hit that. I mean, when you're you're looking for when you're throwing ball to ball sweepers and you have guys swinging at it, does that mean you're a really good pitcher, or does that mean that the guys don't have very good discipline? I think there's a Venn diagram. There's some overlap there. So I just feel like, you know, when you can teach guys to have more constructive, better at bats, know your count, know the situation, there's so much more that goes into it than just trying to, you know, get launch angle and trying to get exit velocity. Like, let's get a hit. Like, you know, I posed a situation the other day. If you had a tie ball game and you needed a runner on third, 2 outs, you could pick one of 2 dudes. Are you picking Juan Soto or are you picking Luis Ariz? And a bunch of people looked at me like I was nuts and went Juan Soto. I'm like, well, he could walk. I'm like, I need the run driven in.
Yeah.
I need the run driven in. Like, I don't need a walk. Like, walks are great. Is that a specific discipline of hitting? Absolutely. Does that necessarily make you a fantastic hitter? It could, but does Aaron Judge walk as much as Juan Soto? No. Is Aaron Judge a far superior stick to Juan Soto? Absolutely. And anyone who wants to argue that, then they can go argue with themselves. But I just think that it's when you look at all the different things, like let's drive that run in. Let's create chaos. Let's make them make a play on you. Walks don't do that. Are they important? Absolutely. But if I need a run driven in, I'm going to go with a guy like Luis Ariz over a guy like Juan Soto. And I think that's just my baseball philosophy. Put the ball in play, make them make a play on you, and hit the ball hard. I mean, and Juan Soto, I'm not saying that he doesn't hit the ball hard or does not put the ball in play, but I feel like there's this myth right now that he is the greatest hitter, because everyone has said, look at how much he walks and look at his OPS. And okay, I'll take a bunch of dudes, not a bunch of dudes, but I'll take Kyle Tucker over Juan Soto right now. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that sounds but I'm not. That's not being a homer when you kind of look at what he's able to do, the damage that he's able to do in certain situations. So.
No, I think if you asked me who I wanted up in a contact play on this Cubs team, I would Kyle Tucker would come to mind, but for me, the first one would be Nico Horner for exactly what you said. Yeah, he doesn't whiff. He's got one of the best whiff rates in baseball, just like Luis Ariz. He doesn't strike out often. He's got one of the best strikeout rates in baseball. Like, that's the guy that is going to put the bat on the ball, because nothing can happen when the ball's in play if the ball's not in play. Like, let the bat pip gods decide, or let that guy get the ball in play, because you never know what's going to happen. It's like Cub wins where like, Gregory Polanco is slipping in the wet grass and somebody scores. Like if that ball's not in play, that never happens. Like that's why hitting the ball is the most important part of all of this. But yeah. Let's transition to the bullpen. The bullpen has been hit or miss. I would argue that they have been significantly better lately. I think the game the other night where Ryan Presley set a lot of unfortunate major league records, prior to that, the team had the bullpen was nails. They didn't give up hits. They were like 5 shutout innings. They were great. They looked fantastic. And the circle of trust is extremely clear to me from, Craig Counsell's trying to get a game closed. And it's Porter Hodge. You got Brad Keller. You've got Julian Merriweather. Daniel Valencia. Pomeranz has been a revelation. He's throwing just as well as the last time he was in the league. And it's been years. Like the guy found the fountain of youth or is just finally healthy. Like what a find. What a great find. A lefty throwing as well as he has. So the bullpen is coming together and they've got reinforcements. Like they've got Tyson Miller, who's still rehabbing. I still think, Keegan Thompson is a pretty solid arm when he's finding the strike zone. But yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's there is a lot of things left to be desired. And the two things that really stick out to me looking at their stats is the Cubs have the lowest strikeout rate by relievers. At 18% in baseball, and they have the 4th highest or 6th highest walk rate. So they're not striking people out, at least with some of the group they've used this year, and they're walking a ton of guys. That is just a recipe for disaster. Yeah, and that's I think if I were to give this bullpen a grade, I'd give them early on a C-, and that's very generous because of how much better they've gotten. But really, if I'm Jed Hoyer, one of the top things I'm looking for is swing and miss reliever for the back end of this bullpen to really just galvanize the group. And, yes, there are maybe Luke Little finds the strike zone. There's still so many options, and it's early in the year where you're not going to cut guys that don't have options and stuff. So I understand finding these things. And I don't think Ryan Presley is necessarily as cooked as he looked the other night. I think there's, some positives there. And they said he's struggling with deception, and I think he could be a solid reliever, but I think the closer thing has sailed for a bit until he stacks some appearances together. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the bullpen?
I mean, you give him a C-, I give him a C+ because when they were good and when they are good, they're pretty solid. And it's not just guys are going 7 and 8 and then 1 or 2 guys come out. It's guys are going 5 or 6, and then you see 3 or 4, sometimes even 5 relievers that get trotted out there. So, I mean, there's really no defined roles, so that's tough to do. So no one really knows who's going to get the next call when that phone rings out there in the bullpen. I feel like you said, Ryan Presley, the closer ship, maybe that's sailed on him. I would love to see a guy like Daniel Palencia be able to fit into that closer role. He's got closer type stuff. I mean, you see this cat throwing up 102 on the radar gun, man. It's that's what you want to see, but I hate. I'm going to be completely honest. I hate when I see relievers, and it's on any team. It doesn't matter what squad it is. When you see relievers come in and they get a dirty inning, just why wouldn't you just have started him out to begin with? If you knew that was a potential, this guy coming in, and just let a dude who throws 102 get a clean base pass. Let him go out there and let him, get his own body of work. Let him go out there and dictate what he's going to be able to do in that strike zone. And I feel like if a Daniel Palencia can really be that guy, but Porter Hodge has been everything that you needed so far this season, but it's the limitation of walks. I mean, that goes for everybody. The starters are being able to limit the walks. Relievers need to do more of that. And this is going to be a tough series because that there's guys that walk. I mean, Juan Soto, he's that walking dude. So if you can limit him, and the next 3 are going to be all important. Whether or not Cade Horton is able to go a significant distance on Saturday, that's still to be seen. But I'll give the bullpen a C+. I mean, there's room for improvement. The biggest room in the house is the room for improvement, man. So I think that's where they'll be at right now. And do they go get Yohan Duran at the All-Star break at the trade deadline if the Minnesota Twins aren't doing what needs to be done? I don't know. We'll see. So it's a lot of things, and there's a lot of currency. And when I say currency, there's a lot of talent in the minors. There's guys like Owen Casey. There's guys like Moises Ballesteros. There are those younger players. There's Jackson Wiggins. There's those young guys down there who I think are very enticing to other ball clubs. So you just don't necessarily want to give one of those guys away and then a year later be watching them dominate with another team.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting. We just talked about this on a recent Bricks Behind the Ivy. So great minds think alike. That the Twins team, as they've struggled at times, I look at Royce Lewis. I'm not sure how available he is. I look at Duran in the back of that bullpen, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan. Like there are some pieces over there that really would look nice in Cubby Blue and really extend this rotation and solidify the bullpen. Duran is a flamethrower, just an absolute elite back end arm. And yeah, I think there's as the Twins are looking to sell the team, there's some of those contracts are up for grabs as they're trying to put themselves in the best position to be bought and the value of the organization. I know like how those things can work. So yeah, I kind of root against the Twins. Sorry to anyone who's a Twins fan who finds this, but just because there's a lot of pieces, especially like a Pablo Lopez and a Duran, that I feel like elevates this team. Just in the rotation and the bullpen. And yeah, I think that's, maybe we'll give an overall grade here now and I'll start. Like, I think, right now I'm going to give the Cubs like a B plus. And mainly just like the offense has been great. The starting pitching has been very solid. And like they have pieces to address this. And this is very similar to our season preview episode. And when the Rogowskis meter was saying 92 wins, like, we're on path to potentially exceed that, and they'll have pieces to address the things they need if they really want to. They have, depending on, what the budget is for, and we're not going to like dissect ownership and like frustration that Cubs and money spending, but like they do have room before that CBT if they want to use it. To address like by taking on high salaries, and these are salaries that they're not going to have to pay in full. They're going to pay part of the salary. They can buy down some of these things with prospects and stuff. Like they're in a great position in a division that has become very winnable, and they are playing a great brand of baseball that is super fun to watch. It is just like all in all a joy to watch this team every night, even when they lose, which I don't like when they lose. I want to see your win flag pin tweets more than anything in the world. Yeah, but like they are just like the way they run the bases, the way they play defense, the way they take at bats. Like this has been such a fun and refreshing thing, and like in times that may be a little more troubling for some, it's a really nice distraction that the Cubs are good.
No, absolutely. I'm going to give them a solid B only because there's room for them to get better, and I feel like they can. It's still not really baseball weather yet. It's at least not in the Chicagoland area. I mean, it looked like it was nice and sunny, but you want, a day where you can go out there and get a sweat built up. And I feel like the Cubs really haven't had that yet at home. I mean, they're still over 500 at home. They've been a better road team so far this season. And I know just the last 3 at home, it kind of amplifies that. But this is a team right now, they're dangerous. And when everything comes together, which I feel like it hasn't necessarily done that yet, they're going to really take off. And if you can remain inside the top 5 teams in baseball, that's pretty much where they're at. As it pertains to all those different power rankings around the game, I think that they're going to be in a really good place. I'll take a solid B. A B, a lot of times can trend into an A real quick. If you're right on the cusp, you do a little extra credit. Maybe an extra credit is the acquisition of a new player here or there, and I think they'll be in business. So I hope that season's end, we're giving them an A+.
Agreed, and like I hope we're sitting at the end of the season, planning on when we're going to the ballpark next year to get that replica World Series trophy and get one of those Jostin rings and like all the fun stuff. So, I mean, like those are lofty expectations. Like I would be happy for them to return to that October tournament and play meaningful baseball in Chicago. And this is a city that is hungry for a winning team. It hasn't been, the Cubs have been the best team of all these sports teams locally for the last few years, but have missed the playoffs. Like it'd be nice to kind of go through a Cubs summer. They're winning, everybody talking Cubs, looking for a Cub podcast and finding Bricks Behind the Ivy, and like just really just riding that wave, becoming a brickhead and find those W flags every day. But
absolutely.
for joining us. As I discussed with you last time, I got you some Yaggy Road coffee. Yaggy Road is a small boutique brewer that makes coffee just as special as the moments you drink them in, based in Valparaiso, Indiana. Go Beacons, run by two Valpo alum. But I got you, this is the 310 espresso. It's graham cracker, chocolate, strawberry, and peanut butter flavoring. And then I also got you this. It's called the Outlier. It's one of their best sellers. It's dark chocolate, toffee, toasted marshmallow, and cherry. These are my wife's two favorites, and the guys at Yaggy told me these are their two best sellers. So I will mail them to you and make sure you drink it and talk about how awesome it is in that clubhouse. And
absolutely.
Any brickheads interested, and make sure you click the link in the description of this podcast and order some coffee today. And as I promised them, I am drinking from my Yaggy Road mug on the show. But Cole, do you have anything you want to promote, or you've got pre and post, I'm assuming, all weekend, and we're going to get to kind of experience as fans, and you're going to get the experience as a fan and at your job, the Kate Horton show this weekend.
That should be fun. Yeah, it'll be myself, Cliff Floyd, all weekend long. We'll be rolling, and hopefully we'll have some good vibes and some wins to talk about. It makes it that much easier when we're able to talk about them getting wins, especially over the Mets. So.
Yeah, that's I'm not old enough to really hate the Mets, but I still do, because I understand the 1969 thing, and 2015 really sucked too. So I really despise the Mets, but I hope we can get some wins out there. This has been another episode of Brooks Behind the Ivy. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Leave some comments on what you think the Cubs grade should be up at this point, and we will share them over the next few weeks on our social media channels. Thank you so much, Cole. And until next time, go Cubs.
Thank you, Jeff.